My precious child, something has shifted in the unseen realm, and you felt it before you even clicked this message. God says, because of what you refuse to do, heaven has lifted your shield. Tonight's attack will not be stopped unless you open this immediately. This is not random. This is not coincidence. And this is not fear speaking. This is a divine interruption. There was a moment, recently, when you were instructed in your spirit to act. It was small. It seemed insignificant. A call you were meant to make. A message you were meant to send. A habit you were meant to release. A prayer you were meant to pray. A boundary you were meant to set. But you hesitated. You said, "I'll do it later." You said, "It's not that serious." You said, "Maybe tomorrow." Heaven mocked that moment. Not in anger. Not in rejection. But in divine consequence. God is not punishing you. He is revealing to you the spiritual law you walk past. There are shields that are activated by obedience. There are protections that are sustained by alignment. And when you refuse that instruction, you unknowingly stepped slightly outside the covering that was prepared for you. Listen carefully. This does not mean you are abandoned. It means you are being warned before impact. Tonight, there is pressure forming, not to destroy you, not to end you, but to test the cracks that hesitation created. You have felt unusual tension today. You have sensed irritation rising without cause. You have noticed strange emotional heaviness. You may even feel watched, unsettled, restless. This is not your imagination. The spiritual atmosphere around you is reacting. But here is the urgency. The attack that is forming does not have legal authority unless you remain passive. And that is why you were brought here. God is saying, open this immediately because your response determines the outcome. The enemy cannot move freely, but he can exploit delay. He studies hesitation. He feeds on procrastination. He waits for spiritual gaps. And tonight, a gap was detected. But before fear grips you, hear this clearly. Heaven has not left you defenseless. Heaven is waiting for your activation. There is something powerful about immediate obedience. When you respond quickly, angels move quickly. When you align instantly, protection is restored instantly. When you repent sincerely, shields return stronger than before. The lifting of your shield was not permanent. It was conditional. And conditions can be reversed. You are not being told this to frighten you. You are being told this because you are valuable. If you were insignificant, there would be no resistance. If you were ordinary, there would be no strategy against you. If you carried nothing important, there would be no attempt to unsettle you. But you carry purpose. You carry influence. You carry a future that disturbs darkness. And the refusal, that small refusal, created a ripple. God is asking you now, why did you resist what you knew was right? Was it pride? Was it fear? Was it comfort? Was it avoidance? Search your heart right now, because the restoration of your shield begins with honesty. There is still time, but time is narrow. The phrase "tonight's attack" does not always mean something dramatic. Sometimes it means a sudden argument that fractures a relationship. Sometimes it means a financial mistake. Sometimes it means emotional overwhelm. Sometimes it means spiritual discouragement that weakens your momentum. Attacks are subtle before they are visible, and heaven does not want you blindsided. There is something about your obedience in this hour that will determine how the next 24 hours unfold. This is why this message feels urgent, not dramatic, urgent. God is not shouting. He is alerting, and when heaven alerts, it is mercy. Imagine a shield made of light surrounding you. Not symbolic, real. The covering built from prior obedience, from past prayers, from past sacrifices, from tears you cried in secret, from faith you held when others mocked you. That shield has defended you more times than you know. But when you ignore divine nudges repeatedly, the shield weakens. Not because God withdraws love, but because alignment sustains protection. Right now, something is waiting to see if you will respond. The moment you say, I was wrong. The moment you say, I will obey. The moment you say, I align again. Movement happens in the unseen, and that is where the real battle is. You are not under attack because you are weak. You are under pressure because you are rising. But rising requires responsiveness. God says, open this immediately because delay is the only weapon that works against you right now. You click because something in your spirit knew this was not accidental. And here is the truth that may shock you. If you had not opened this, the night would have unfolded differently. Not catastrophically, but strategically against you. Heaven does not waste warnings. So breathe. Center yourself. Ask quietly, Lord, what did I refuse? Let it surface. Because once you identify it, the restoration begins. This is not the end of your protection. This is the reactivation of it. And what happens next depends entirely on what you choose in this very moment. Beloved soul, the silence after conviction is where destiny bends. You are still here, still breathing, still under the watchful eyes of heaven. That means this is not a sentence, it is a summons. When God says the shield was lifted because of what you refused to do, He is not exposing you to shame. He is exposing the doorway that must be closed before nightfall. Here is something powerful about acknowledgement. The moment you admit what you delayed, you disarm what was forming. The enemy thrives in denial. He advances when you justify. But when you confront truth head-on, something shifts in the unseen realm. Angels respond to humility faster than they respond to desperation. You may be asking, was it really that serious? Yes. Not because the action itself was massive, but because obedience is never measured by size, it is measured by surrender. Sometimes the smallest instruction carries the greatest protection. When you ignored that inner prompting, it signaled resistance. And resistance, even slight resistance, creates spiritual friction. Tonight's attack is subtle. It may not look like chaos. It may come disguised as distraction. A sudden wave of doubt. A conversation that triggers insecurity. A thought that whispers, you are alone. That is how breaches begin, not with explosions but with erosion. God is saying, return to me quickly. Not tomorrow. Not after you feel ready. Now, there are moments in life when delay is harmless. And then there are moments like this, moments where timing is everything. You were warned because you are loved. You were interrupted because your calling matters. If heaven had remained silent, that would be the real danger. Pause for a second and reflect. When was the last time you clearly felt instructed? Think carefully. Was it about forgiving someone? Was it about ending a toxic pattern? Was it about stepping into a responsibility you kept postponing? Whatever it was, that instruction was connected to your covering. The shield that was lifted was not removed in anger. It was adjusted in response to alignment. And alignment can be restored just as quickly as it shifted. Right now, as you listen to this, something is recalibrating. Your awareness is sharpening. The very fact that this message resonates is proof that your spirit recognizes truth. Darkness cannot cling where light is welcomed. But here is what many people misunderstand. Restoration requires action. Not emotion. Not regret. Action. If you were meant to apologize, do it. If you were meant to pray, pray. If you were meant to let go, let go. If you were meant to speak up, speak up. The longer you wait, the more room the enemy thinks he has. And he only operates on perceived permission. You are not powerless tonight. You are positioned. The atmosphere around you is sensitive. One decision can redirect the entire outcome. One act of obedience can rebuild the shield stronger than before. Heaven is not fragile. It responds decisively to decisive hearts. And let me tell you something important. The attack forming is not random. It is targeted. It is aimed at your peace, your clarity, your confidence. If those are shaken, your next steps become unstable. That is the strategy, not destruction, destabilization. But God saw it early. That is why you are hearing this before the night deepens. There is still time to fortify what was loosened. There is still time to declare alignment. There is still time to say, I choose obedience over comfort. And when you do, something powerful happens. The same heaven that adjusted your shield will reinforce it. The same angels that paused will move again. The same protection that felt distant will surround you tangibly. Do not underestimate how quickly things can turn in your favor when you respond immediately. And as you absorb this message, understand something else. Messages like this do not reach everyone. They reach those who are spiritually alert. If this is speaking directly to your situation, do not keep it to yourself. There are others who are walking into tonight unaware of what is forming against them. If this resonates, let your agreement be visible. Like this message so it can reach more people who need this warning. Share it with someone who hath been hesitating in obedience. Comment your declaration of alignment below. Subscribe and become part of this growing community that refuses to stay spiritually asleep. When you engage, you amplify the reach of divine truth. And hold on, because what is about to unfold next will reveal why this specific refusal was not accidental at all. There is a deeper layer to this, one that explains why the timing of your obedience is directly connected to something much bigger than just tonight. Chosen one, what you thought was a small refusal was actually a turning point written into your spiritual timeline. There are certain instructions from God that are not isolated events. They are gateways. When He nudges you to act, it is often because something ahead requires that act as preparation. The refusal was not just about disobedience. It interrupted preparation. And preparation is what keeps you ahead of unseen attacks. You were being positioned. Heaven was arranging circumstances quietly. Connections were aligning. Opportunities were forming. Protection was stabilizing. But the instruction you resisted was the key that secured all of it together. Without that key turning, the structure remains slightly unlocked. God is revealing this now because what is approaching is not random. It is connected to growth. Expansion drives resistance. Promotion attracts pressure. And whenever you are about to rise, the atmosphere becomes sensitive. The shield being lifted was not abandonment. It was exposure for awareness. There is a difference. Exposure for destruction leaves you confused. Exposure for awareness makes you alert. Right now, you are alert. That means mercy is active. Think back again to that moment you delayed. There was a conviction attached to it. You felt it in your chest. A quiet but firm prompting. You tried to reason your way out of it. You minimized it. You distracted yourself from it. But it lingered. That lingering was the Spirit saying, "This matters more than you understand." Obedience is not about control. It is about synchronization. When you obey, you move in rhythm with heaven. When you delay, the rhythm is disrupted. And disruption, even briefly, can create vulnerability. It's for me that is trying to exploit that rhythm break. But here is the revelation that changes everything. Vulnerability is not defeat. It is an invitation to realign. The enemy expected you to remain unaware. He expected you to move into the night distracted, uncorrected, passive. He did not expect you to receive warning. They did not expect him to turn into Caribbean. That is why this moment is critical. When you choose obedience now, it will not only restore the shield, it will strengthen it beyond its previous state. God does not simply repair, He fortifies it. Here is power in immediate repentance. Not dramatic words, not emotional displays, just sincere alignment. Say within yourself, "Lord, I return." That sentence alone shifts spiritual ground, because heaven responds to humility faster than it responds to fear. And listen carefully, the shield was lifted in measure, not in fullness. Complete abandonment never happened. You were still covered enough to receive warning. You were still guarded enough to be redirected. That means you are still deeply favored. The attack that was forming relied on you staying stubborn. It relied on pride keeping you silent. It relied on delay stretching longer. But you are breaking that pattern right now. You may feel a subtle shift already. A clarity. A steadiness. That is alignment beginning. God says, "I do not expose you to harm. I expose you to truth so you can avoid harm." And truth has found you tonight. This is not about living in fear of mistakes. It is about recognizing how responsive heaven is to your decisions. You are not insignificant. Your actions ripple in the unseen realm. Your obedience activates forces you cannot see. Your hesitation pauses things you cannot measure. That is how powerful you are in the Spirit. Do not let shame creep in. Shame is not from God. Shame leads to hiding, and hiding is what truly weakens shields. Stand upright in this moment. You were warned because you are valued. And now, as you stand in renewed awareness, something is shifting over your household, over your peace, over your sleep tonight. The attack that was forming is losing clarity. Its strategy is blurring. Its timing is destabilizing. Because you responded. God is not looking for perfection. He is looking for responsiveness. And you are responding. Before this message closes, seal this alignment with agreement. Let your voice declare what your spirit feels. Type "I return" and "I align" in the comments if this message is confirming what you sensed. Lesson code 1441 has just been activated over your obedience. And now hear this carefully. When you sow into a warning, you participate in protection. When you help spread a message that redirects souls, you become part of heaven's rescue mission. The word says, "I will pour water on the thirsty land and streams on the dry ground." This is not ancient history. This is God speaking now, promising to flood every willing heart. If this message realigned you, imagine how many others are standing at the edge of hesitation tonight. Your support becomes oil in the lamp. Your giving becomes seed in fertile ground. Your action becomes light pushing back unseen darkness. I feel led to say this clearly. I choose to be a vessel that keeps the shield raised for others. If that is your heart, Act on it now. You super thanks. Join the membership. So through the PayPal link in the description. Do not treat it as a donation. Treat it as participation in divine protection. As you give, may open heavens respond. May your house be guarded. May your obedience multiply. Step into it boldly. Activate your seed. Let heaven record your alignment today. Faithful heart, now that alignment has been restored, you must understand what almost happened, not to frighten you, but to awaken your spiritual awareness. There are battles you see, and then there are battles you never realize were scheduled against you. Tonight was shaping up to be one of those silent confrontations. Not loud, not dramatic, but precise. The kind that chits away at confidence. The kind that plants subtle seeds of doubt. The kind that leaves you questioning your clarity tomorrow morning. The strategy was simple. Destabilize your inner ground. When your inner ground is shaken, your decisions become reactive instead of intentional. Your words become defensive instead of wise. Your emotions become louder than your discernment. And once that shift happens, the enemy does not need to attack directly. You begin to sabotage your own peace. That is why the shield mattered. The shield is not just protection from events. It is protection over perception. It guards how you interpret what happens. Without it, even neutral situations can feel threatening. Even small misunderstandings can feel personal. Even minor delays can feel like rejection. You see how subtle this is? The refusal you made earlier created a slight spiritual imbalance. Not because God withdrew love, but because alignment sustains clarity. When clarity weakens, interpretation becomes vulnerable. And that is where tonight's attack was aimed. What something interrupted, your willingness to listen shifted the trajectory. There are moments in life when heaven steps in loudly, and there are moments when heaven whispers urgently. This was a whisper carrying weight, and you responded before the night unfolded fully. Right now, angels are repositioning around you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are responsive. There is a difference between rebellion and hesitation. Rebellion resists correction. Hesitation can still be redirected, and you allowed redirection. A humility restored authority. The enemy had calculated your silence. He anticipated that you would ignore the conviction one more time. He anticipated that pride would keep you from admitting the delay. But humility surprised him, and humility carries power. God says, when you turn quickly, I move quickly. This is why obedience is not about restriction. It is about acceleration. When you align, things begin to flow again. Be settled. Thoughts stabilize. The atmosphere lightened. You may even notice tonight that your sleep feels different, calmer, deeper, less restless. That is not imagination. That is restored covering. But there is something more. The instruction you refused was not only about preventing harm. It was about unlocking advancement. Protection and promotion often come through the same door. When you obey, you are not just avoiding danger. You are stepping into growth. There is an opportunity ahead of you that requires sharper discernment. A conversation coming that requires emotional steadiness. A decision forming that requires spiritual clarity. If tonight's destabilization had succeeded, you would have entered that moment slightly off balance. And slight imbalance at critical times can cost more than obvious mistakes. That is why heaven intervened early. God is not reactive. He is proactive. He sees the ripple effect of small choices. He sees how delayed apology can harden hearts. He sees how postponed discipline can weaken character. He sees how unspoken truth can create confusion. And because he sees ahead, he warns in advance. This message was not random content. It was timing. You must begin to recognize how often God nudges you before shifts occur. The more sensitive you become to those nudges, the stronger your shield remains. Spiritual maturity is not about dramatic experiences. It is about consistent responsiveness. Tonight you matured. You chose awareness over comfort. You chose correction over pride. You chose alignment over delay. That choice strengthened you. And now listen carefully to what God is saying in this moment. Do not return to casual obedience. There is a pattern trying to form in your life, a pattern of postponing what you know is right. It has seemed harmless because consequences were not immediate. But delayed consequences are still consequences, and delayed obedience still weakens rhythm. Break the pattern now. Let tonight be a marker. Let it be the moment you decide that when conviction speaks, you respond. When instruction comes, you act. When clarity arrives, you move. Because you are entering a season where quick obedience will protect you repeatedly. You may not always receive dramatic warnings like this. Sometimes the instruction will be quiet and simple, but treat it as significant. Treat it as sacred. Your shield thrives on surrender. And the beautiful truth is this. The same heaven that lifted it slightly in response to delay has now reinforced it because of your humility. You are not exposed tonight. You are guarded. You are not vulnerable tonight. You are covered. And as the night continues, the strategy that was forming will dissolve quietly. You may never see what was planned. You may never know what all was unfolded. But heaven knows. And heaven acted. Stay attentive. Stay responsive. Stay aligned. Because what is coming next is not an attack. It is an opportunity. And you will be ready for it. Steady warrior. Now that the immediate danger has been redirected, there is something deeper you must understand about why this happened at all. This was not just about one moment of hesitation. It revealed a pattern that has been quietly forming beneath the surface of your life. A pattern of knowing and delaying, of sensing and postponing, of understanding and then choosing comfort instead of courage. God is not exposing this to condemn you. He is exposing it to strengthen you. Patterns, when left unchecked, become pathways. And pathways, when repeated, become strongholds. The enemy does not build strongholds overnight. He builds them through repetition, through small compromises, through tiny delays that seem harmless in isolation but powerful in accumulation. You have been growing, spiritually, mentally, emotionally. There is expansion happening around you, but expansion requires structure, and structure requires discipline. The refusal you made earlier was connected to discipline, not punishment, not restriction. Discipline. Discipline is what keeps your shield reinforced daily. It is what keeps your discernment sharp. It is what keeps your reactions measured. Without discipline, even gifted people become unstable. Even called individuals become inconsistent. And inconsistency is what the enemy studies. He does not fear your potential. He fears your consistency. If you pray once in crisis but not in peace, that inconsistency creates openings. If you obey when it feels convenient but delay when it feels uncomfortable, that inconsistency creates rhythm breaks. If you listen only when messages are dramatic but ignore the quiet whisper, that inconsistency weakens spiritual reflexes. Tonight's warning was not just about protection. It was about training. God is strengthening your spiritual reflexes. Reflexes are built through repetition, through quick response, through conditioning. When you repeatedly respond to divine nudges without hesitation, you become spiritually agile. You stop overthinking obedience. You stop negotiating with conviction. You move when prompted. That is where power flows. There is a level you are approaching where delayed obedience will cost more than before. Not because God is harsher, but because responsibility increases with growth. As your influence expands, so does the impact of your decisions. You are not where you were a year ago. You have more awareness now, more clarity, more understanding. And with greater understanding comes greater accountability. That is not pressure. That is promotion. The enemy sensed your growth. He sensed your strengthening, and he attempted to test whether hesitation could still control you. But with the real attack, not chaos, not destruction, a test of your response speed, and you passed the correction phase. But now comes the strengthening phase. God is saying, build a habit of immediate obedience. When you feel prompted to forgive, do it. When you sense a need to adjust your routine, adjust it. When you feel led to speak truth, gently speak it. When you sense a boundary needs to be established, establish it. Stop negotiating with clarity. Clarity is a gift, and every time you negotiate with it, you weaken trust in your own discernment. You have felt this before. That inner voice that says, handle this now. And your mind replies, later. That delay creates inner tension. That tension drains energy. And drained energy reduces vigilance. Vigilance is what keeps your shield bright. This is not about living in anxiety. It is about living in awareness. There is a difference. Anxiety is fear-driven. Awareness is spirit-led. God wants you alert, not afraid. Tonight was proof that heaven monitors your path carefully. That warning did not come randomly. It came because you matter. It came because your future carries weight. It came because what you are stepping into cannot afford spiritual laziness. Let this truth settle deeply. Obedience protects your momentum. Momentum is fragile. It takes time to build and seconds to disrupt. You have been building momentum in your life, in your mindset, in your faith, in your direction. The enemy's goal was not to destroy you, but to slow you down. So momentum often feels like confusion, like second-guessing, like emotional heaviness that makes simple decisions feel exhausting. But that slowdown has been intercepted. Now the responsibility shifts back to you. Will you treat obedience as urgent from this point forward? Will you respond when prompted instead of rationalizing delay? Will you train your spirit to move quickly when God whispers? Because the next season you are entering will require sharp responsiveness. Doors are going to open unexpectedly. Conversations are going to arise suddenly. Opportunities will appear without long preparation. And in those moments, hesitation will cost more than it does now. God is preparing you for acceleration. Acceleration demands readiness. Readiness demands discipline. And discipline is strengthened through moments exactly like this one. You were not warned because you failed. You were warned because you are being refined. Refinement is uncomfortable. It exposes weakness. It reveals habits. It confronts comfort zones. But it also produces strength. Tonight, instead of being shaken, you were sharpened. Instead of being destabilized, you were disciplined. Instead of being attacked successfully, you were alerted strategically. Carry this lesson forward. Let it reshape how you respond to inner conviction. Let it redefine how seriously you treat divine nudges. Because this was not just about surviving a night. It was about preparing for rise. Awakened spirit. There is something else you must see clearly now that the dust has settled. The shield was lifted not only because of what you refused to do, but because heaven was measuring your readiness for the next assignment. There are levels of responsibility that require sharper obedience. You cannot carry greater authority while still entertaining delayed responses. God is not trying to control you. He is trying to trust you with more. Trust in the spirit realm is built through consistency. When you respond quickly, you demonstrate reliability. And reliability is what qualifies you for heavier mantles, deeper insight, stronger protection. The moment of hesitation earlier revealed an area where growth was still needed. Not condemnation. And growth requires exposure. There are some people who never realize where their weaknesses lie because they are never tested. But you were tested in a small way before being entrusted with something bigger. That is mercy. If tonight's destabilization had succeeded, it would have affected more than your emotions. It would have influenced decisions coming soon. Decisions that involve timing. Decisions that involve discernment. Decisions that influence others around you. You are not walking alone. Your obedience impacts more than just you. This is why heaven intervenes when alignment slips. The enemy wanted to plant a seed of subtle insecurity. A whisper that questions your judgment. A thought that makes you doubt your direction. Because when you doubt yourself, you hesitate more. And when you hesitate more, you delay more. And when you delay more, patterns strengthen. But the chain has been interrupted. Now you must guard against returning to casual delay. There is a habit that must be broken permanently. The habit of saying, "It can wait." Some things can wait. Divine instruction cannot. You may feel this message pressing on you. But pressure is not fear. It is urgency for maturity. You are stepping into a season where clarity will come quickly and decisions will need to follow just as quickly. If you overthink every nudge, you will miss windows that were designed for you. God is refining your response time. And here is something powerful. Responsiveness increases spiritual authority. When you align rapidly, you begin to sense shifts faster. You recognize atmospheres quicker. You detect subtle changes before they manifest outwardly. This is spiritual maturity. You are being trained not to react to attacks, but to prevent them. Prevention is higher-level warfare. The enemy operates through predictability. If he knows you will delay, he can schedule this strategy around your hesitation. But when you become unpredictable in obedience, when you act immediately, his calculations fail. Let that sink in. Your speed in obedience disrupts darkness. The moment you refused earlier, he assumed pattern continuation. But tonight you broke the pattern. And breaking patterns confuses strategies. Do not underestimate the power of this shift. There is a calling over your life that requires sharpness. Not perfection, but sharpness. The ability to sense, respond, and move without constant inner debate. Inner debate drains energy. Energy is needed for purpose. Purpose is advancing. You may have noticed that recently life has felt like it is accelerating. Things are changing quickly. Conversations are carrying more weight. Choices feel more significant. That is because you are approaching a threshold. Threshold seasons expose weaknesses so they can be corrected before crossing over. This was correction before crossing. And because you responded, the crossing remains open. Now hear me carefully. This message reaching you is not accidental. If this awakening is stirring something inside you, do not treat it lightly. Engage with it. Let it move through you. Share it with someone who had been hesitating. Like this message so others who need this warning can find it. Comment your commitment to immediate obedience. Subscribe and stand with this growing community that chooses alignment over delay. And hold on, because what you are about to understand next will show you how this single act of responsiveness is connected to something unfolding in the spiritual realm that you cannot yet see. There are movements happening beyond your vision. Angelic assignments adjusting. Opportunities repositioning. Conversations being delayed or accelerated. All because you shifted. Do not scroll past this moment casually in your heart. This is a pivot, and pivots change trajectories. The night that was meant to test your weakness has now become evidence of your growth. And growth is what qualifies you for what is coming. Stay alert. Stay responsive. Because the next revelation will show you why this was never just about protection. It was about preparation for elevation. Anointed listener, what is unfolding now goes deeper than a single night or a single decision. What you experienced was a spiritual rehearsal. It was heaven allowing you to feel the edge of vulnerability without letting you fall into it. Rehearsals are not punishments. They are previews. God allowed you to sense what misalignment feels like so you would never ignore it again. That subtle unrest, that quiet tension, that feeling that something is slightly off. Those sensations are not random emotions. They are spiritual indicators. And now you recognize them more clearly. This is how discernment sharpens. Before tonight, you may have brushed off those inner signals. You may have labeled them as stress or overthinking. But now you understand that sometimes unrest is not psychological. It is spiritual misalignment asking to be corrected. The shield, being lifted briefly, was not about exposing you to harm. It was about teaching you the value of covering. When something is always present, you forget its importance. You rarely thank the air you breathe because it is constantly there. Protection can feel the same way. You only notice it when it shifts. And now you will not take it lightly. There is a maturity settling over you. You are beginning to realize that obedience is not a religious obligation. It is relational trust. When God prompts you, it is because He sees angles you do not. He sees conversations before they happen. He sees reactions before they form. He sees traps before they are laid. Obedience is partnership with foresight. The enemy studies your reactions, but God studies your potential, and your potential is expanding rapidly. There are doors ahead that require spiritual stability. You cannot walk into elevated spaces with delayed reflexes. Influence demands awareness. Responsibility demands discipline. Leadership demands quick alignment. You are being prepared for influence. Even if your current environment feels ordinary, there is a shift coming that will place you in moments where others look to you for clarity. And in those moments, hesitation will not be an option. That is why tonight mattered. This was training for a larger stage. Do not underestimate how small moments prepare you for significant platforms. The habit of immediate obedience in private builds authority in public. The discipline you cultivate unseen strengthens the confidence you will carry when seen. You may not feel like a leader right now. You may not see influence clearly yet. But growth rarely announces itself loudly. It builds quietly beneath the surface until suddenly it becomes undeniable. There is something else happening beneath your awareness. Your sensitivity to the Spirit is increasing. That is why this message resonated so deeply. Not everyone would have felt its urgency. Not everyone would have paused to examine themselves. What you did, that means your spirit is alive. And an alive spirit is dangerous to darkness. The enemy prefers non-believers, distracted minds, delayed responders. But you are becoming alert. and alertness shifts atmospheres. You might notice over the coming days that you sense things earlier than before. You may pick up on subtle tensions in conversations. You may feel prompted to adjust plans without knowing why. You may feel stronger convictions about certain choices. Do not ignore those nudges. They are part of your sharpening. God is building spiritual reflexes inside you. Reflexes that will protect you from unnecessary battles. Reflexes that will guide you into divine timing. Reflexes that will keep your shield reinforced without dramatic warnings. This is growth. And growth is rarely comfortable. It requires self-examination. It requires humility. It requires the willingness to admit when you were wrong and correct it quickly. You demonstrated that willingness. That is why the strategy against you weakened. There is something powerful about breaking a pattern in real time. The enemy expected continuity. He expected you to repeat delay. But you disrupted expectation. And when you disrupt patterns, you disrupt plans. Now the atmosphere around you feels steadier. Not because there is no opposition, but because you are more aware. Awareness is strength. You are stepping into a phase where spiritual sensitivity will become one of your greatest assets. Read it carefully. Guard it. Do not drown it in distraction. Do not silence it with constant noise. Make space for quiet reflection. Make space for listening. Because the next instructions you receive may not come with dramatic urgency. They may come gently. And your ability to respond without hesitation will determine how smoothly your next season unfolds. You were rehearsed tonight so you would be ready tomorrow. You were corrected tonight so you would be confident later. You were alerted tonight so you would be aligned consistently. And this is only the beginning of a deeper unfolding. What is coming next will reveal why your obedience is connected to something larger than just your personal journey. It is tied to influence, to impact, to timing that extends beyond you. Prepare your heart. The revelation ahead will expand your understanding of why heaven refuses to let you drift casually. Radiant soul, what you are stepping into now is larger than personal protection. It is generational impact. The refusal you corrected was not isolated to your own life. It was connected to a ripple that extends beyond what you can currently see. Every act of obedience creates movement in places you may never physically stand. Every delayed response delays more than your comfort. It delays influence. There are people assigned to your voice. There are atmospheres assigned to your presence. There are environments that shift because you walk into them aligned. When you hesitate, those environments remain unchanged longer than they should. That is why heaven does not treat your obedience casually. You may think your decisions are private. But spiritually, nothing is isolated. Alignment releases clarity not just for you, but for those connected to you. When your shield is reinforced, the peace in your household strengthens. The discernment in your relationship sharpens. The stability in your assignment solidifies. You are more influential than you realize. The enemy understood that. That is why destabilization was targeted at your perception first. If he can cloud your clarity, he can reduce your impact. If he can delay your responsiveness, he can stall momentum that was meant to bless others. But the interruption came in time. Now something new is activating. There is an expansion of spiritual authority happening around you. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. Authority is not about dominance. It is about alignment. The more aligned you are, the more weight your presence carries in unseen realms. That is why small acts of obedience matter so deeply. God is refining you because your next season involves influence over environments where spiritual sensitivity is rare. You will walk into spaces where people are unaware of spiritual dynamics, and your quiet alignment will become a stabilizing force. Imagine that. You entering a room and tension easing. You speaking and confusion clearing. You deciding and direction solidifying. This is not exaggeration. This is preparation. But preparation requires consistency. You cannot carry generational impact with inconsistent obedience. You cannot stabilize atmospheres if your own inner ground wavers easily. That is why this lesson was necessary before expansion accelerates. The shield that was lifted briefly has now been reinforced with awareness. And awareness multiplies effectiveness. There is also something prophetic about timing. Tonight's warning came before a significant transition. You may not see it yet, but there is movement forming around your life. Conversations are aligning. Doors are positioning. Opportunities are preparing to surface. Your readiness determines how smoothly they unfold. God is not only protecting you from attack, He is positioning you for influence. And influence demands purity of response. The enemy attempted to test your pattern of delay because delayed obedience weakens authority. But you broke that pattern, and breaking it restored not only protection but weight. Weight in the spirit realm is earned through consistency. You are earning it. This is why you must guard your responsiveness moving forward. Do not slip back into casual delay. Treat every conviction seriously. Treat every nudge with respect. The more you do, the stronger your spiritual footing becomes. And hear this clearly. You are not being trained for survival. You are being trained for leadership. Leadership may not look like a stage or a title. It may look like being the calm voice in chaos, the steady presence in confusion, the discerning heart in emotional storms. That is leadership. Your obedience is shaping that capacity. As you stand in this awareness, seal this expansion with agreement. Declare your readiness to carry greater influence. Type "I carry divine authority" in the comments if this resonates in your spirit. Blessing code 2882 is now released over your calling. Now listen carefully as this flows naturally from what you just received. When a vessel is being prepared for greater impact, it must be strengthened continuously. Messages like this are not just content. They are oil for lamps that must keep burning, and oil must be replenished. The word declares, "Those who sow generously will reap generously." This is not distant scripture. It is God speaking into your present moment. When you sow into spreading truth that awakens souls, you participate in expanding light where darkness tries to settle. I feel led to say this clearly. I choose to fuel the fire that protects and prepares others. If that is your declaration, act on it now. You super thanks. Step into membership. Sow through the PayPal link in the description. Let your giving be prophetic participation, not passive observation. As you release your seed, may rivers of provision flow back to you. May your house remain guarded. May your influence multiply. Activate your obedience through action. Move now. Focused heart. The authority you are stepping into will be tested again, not to break you, but to confirm you. Whenever spiritual weight increases, resistance adjusts. Not because you are vulnerable, but because you are visible in the unseen realm. The moment you chose alignment instead of delay, something marked you differently. Your responsiveness signaled readiness, and readiness attracts responsibility. Responsibility invites scrutiny. Do not misunderstand this. Scrutiny is not punishment. It is refinement. Gold is tested because it is valuable. Steel is forged because it is useful. You are being shaped because you are needed. The enemy will attempt subtle tactics again, but now you recognize the pattern. The first sign will not be chaos. It will be distraction, an invitation to procrastinate clarity, a temptation to ignore a small conviction, a whisper that says, "You can handle this later." That whisper is familiar now, and because it is familiar, it has lost power. You must understand something profound. Authority is not loud. It is consistent. The enemy does not fear dramatic declarations as much as he fears daily discipline. When you wake up and choose alignment repeatedly, you weaken strategies before they form. Your life is shifting from reactive to proactive. That shift is everything. Before, warnings came when misalignment was already in motion. Now, you are becoming sensitive enough to prevent misalignment before it stabilizes. This is higher-level awareness. It is maturity in motion. You may notice over the coming days that certain environments feel different around you. Conversations that once drained you may no longer have the same grip. Situations that once confused you may become clearer faster. That is not coincidence. That is growth. Growth changes how you interpret reality. Remember earlier when the shield was described as protection over perception. That protection is stronger now because your perception is sharper. You are learning to discern quickly, to adjust quickly. Speed in obedience creates stability and outcome. Here is something else unfolding quietly. Your confidence is being rebuilt on a deeper foundation. Not confidence in your ability alone, but confidence in your responsiveness to God. That is different. That kind of confidence does not collapse under pressure because it is rooted in alignment. When pressure comes, you will not panic. You will pause. You will listen. You will respond. That is authority. The enemy attempted to shake your inner ground earlier because unstable ground produces unstable decisions. But your ground is firmer now. Not because there will never be challenges, but because you understand the rhythm of alignment. Rhythm is powerful. When you stay in rhythm with heaven, external noise loses influence. People may misunderstand you. Circumstances may shift unexpectedly. Plans may change suddenly. But your internal rhythm remains steady. That steadiness intimidates darkness. You are no longer easily swayed by emotion. You are no longer quick to postpone conviction. You are becoming anchored. Anchored people influence drifting ones. And this is where generational impact deepens. Someone connected to you will soon face a moment of hesitation similar to the one you just overcame. They will watch how you respond. They will observe your discipline. They will feel the steadiness in your decisions. And without preaching, you will teach. That is leadership in its purest form. You do not need a platform to influence. You need alignment. And you are aligning more consistently now. There will still be moments of temptation to delay. Growth does not eliminate testing. It strengthens response. The difference now is awareness. You recognize the early signals. You sense subtle tension before it grows. You respond before it escalates. That is spiritual maturity. The night that almost destabilized you has now become a foundation for greater stability. What was meant to test your weakness has strengthened your reflexes. What was meant to create insecurity has reinforced confidence. God wastes nothing. Even your mistakes become training grounds in His hands. As you continue forward, remember this truth. Obedience is not about fear of consequences. It is about love for alignment. When you love alignment, obedience becomes natural. It becomes your reflex rather than your struggle. And reflexive obedience is powerful. The coming days may reveal opportunities that require decisive action. Do not overanalyze them. Listen for peace. Listen for conviction. Move when clarity comes. You are more prepared than you realize. Heaven is not watching you nervously. It is watching you confidently. Because you responded when it mattered. Because you corrected when it was necessary. Because you aligned when delay was tempting. That is strength. And the next unfolding will not be about warning. It will be about confirmation. Steadfast one. What comes after correction and refinement is confirmation. You have walked through warding. You have stepped into alignment. You have strengthened your responsiveness. Now heaven begins to confirm what was forming around you all along. The shield that was briefly lifted has not only been restored, it has been reinforced with awareness, discipline, and authority. That reinforcement is about to manifest in tangible ways. Not dramatic signs in the sky, but noticeable shifts in your daily rhythm. You may begin to sense unusual clarity in situations that once confused you. Conversations that might have escalated will de-escalate. Decisions that once felt heavy will feel lighter. This is confirmation that alignment produces stability. God is saying, "See how quickly I respond when you respond." This is the rhythm of partnership. The enemy anticipated prolonged hesitation. He anticipated a pattern of delay. But when you corrected quickly, his timeline collapsed. Strategies built around your inconsistency could not stand against your discipline. That collapse is confirmation. You will not always see what was planned against you. Most battles dissolve before they become visible when alignment is strong. That is what makes obedience powerful. It prevents what you may never even know existed. But do not become complacent in confirmation. This is where many people stumble. When pressure lifts and peace returns, they relax their vigilance. They assume the lesson is complete. They drift back into casual responsiveness. That drift is subtle, but it slowly weakens rhythm again. Do not drift. Treat confirmation as motivation, not comfort. The peace you feel now is proof that discipline works. The stability you sense is evidence that responsiveness matters. The clarity emerging is testimony that obedience protects perception. Carry this forward intentionally. There is an expansion still ahead. A warning was phase 1. The training was phase 2. The confirmation is phase 3. But beyond confirmation lies activation. Activation will require courage. You may soon feel prompted toward something that stretches you slightly. A conversation you would normally avoid. A step you would normally postpone. A decision that requires boldness instead of caution. When that moment comes, remember tonight. Remember how delay almost created vulnerability. Remember how quick correction restored strength. Let that memory fuel immediate obedience next time. Because the next instruction may not come with urgency. It may come quietly, calmly, gently, and your readiness will determine how smoothly you step into it. You are being prepared for activation. Activation is where influence becomes visible. Influence does not always mean public recognition. It means tangible impact. It means your decisions begin to affect outcomes more clearly. It means your presence shifts environments more consistently. That is coming. But before activation unfolds, confirmation must settle deeply within you. You must believe that obedience truly changes trajectories. You must internalize that responsiveness truly dismantles unseen strategies. Do not dismiss this as coincidence. Do not minimize what just happened spiritually. The sequence was deliberate. Warning, revision, reinforcement, confirmation, and now expectation. Something is forming that aligns with your calling. Not something dramatic and chaotic, but something purposeful. When it arrives, you will feel prepared instead of overwhelmed. that preparedness is the fruit of discipline. If this message has walked with you from the beginning and you sense the shift within yourself, engage with it. Like this message so it continues reaching those standing at their own crossroads. Share it with someone who has been hesitating in obedience. Comment your declaration of readiness below. Subscribe and stand connected to this space where alignment is sharpened and discipline is strengthened. And stay attentive, because what is about to unfold next will not be another warning. It will be the unveiling of why your obedience was necessary for something larger than you originally imagined. The night that almost destabilized you has now become a launching point. The shield is secure. Your awareness is heightened. Your discipline is strengthening. Now activation approaches, and you will not hesitate when it does. Courageous one. Activation is no longer approaching. It is beginning. What you sensed as preparation was not imagination. The alignment you chose has positioned you at the edge of a defining moment. Not necessarily loud, not necessarily public, but defining in the spirit realm. Activation always follows obedience. There is something God can now entrust to you because you demonstrated responsiveness under pressure. Many desire influence, but few accept refinement. Many pray for elevation, but resist correction. You did not resist. You adjusted. And adjustment unlocked access. Access to what? Access to clear direction. Access to stronger discernment. Access to opportunities that require maturity rather than impulse. You are stepping into a season where your decisions will carry more visible consequence. That is not a threat, it is a promotion. When authority increases, impact increases. When impact increases, precision matters more. The hesitation you once entertained would not survive in the season ahead. That is why it had to be confronted now. You may soon face a choice that looks simple on the surface but carries long-term significance. It may involve partnership. It may involve relocation. It may involve commitment. It may involve letting go of something familiar. When that moment arrives, you will feel a familiar inner nudge. This time, do not negotiate with it. The lesson of the shield was not meant to scare you. It was meant to sharpen you. And you are sharper now. There is also a deeper layer unfolding behind the scenes. While you were correcting alignment, heaven was recalibrating assignments around you. Some connections are being strengthened. Others are quietly loosening. Some paths are becoming clearer. Others are fading. This is not loss. It is refinement. You cannot carry new assignments with old attachments that hinder obedience. When growth accelerates, pruning follows. Not to diminish you, but to direct you. Pay attention to subtle shifts in your relationships and opportunities. Notice where peace flows naturally and where resistance feels forced. Alignment will always carry a quiet steadiness. Misalignment will carry tension that lingers. Trust that awareness. The enemy's earlier strategy relied on your delay. But now that your responsiveness has increased, his approach must change. Instead of tempting you to postpone, he may attempt to rush you impulsively. Instead of whispering later, he may whisper now, without thinking. Discern the difference. Obedience is not impulsive. It is peaceful even when urgent. It carries clarity, not chaos. If something pressures you into reaction without inner steadiness, pause. Alignment feels firm, not frantic. This is part of activation, learning the rhythm of true prompting versus emotional urgency. You are no longer at the stage of needing dramatic warnings. You are at the stage of internal sensitivity. That sensitivity is precious. Protect it. Do not ground it in constant noise or distraction. Create space for quiet reflection regularly. The more you listen, the clearer you will hear. There is confirmation coming that will affirm this entire journey. It may appear as an unexpected conversation where someone acknowledges your growth. It may appear as a door opening that previously felt sealed. It may appear as a sudden clarity about a long-standing question. When it happens, remember this process. Remember the warning. Remember the correction. Remember the strengthening. Remember the confirmation. And recognize activation unfolding. You are not the same person who almost stepped into vulnerability earlier. You are steadier, more aware, more disciplined. A transformation is subtle but powerful. The night that once carried potential destabilization now stands as a testimony of refinement. What was meant to test your weakness has become proof of your maturity. Carry that confidence forward. There is also something prophetic about timing. Activation rarely happens when you feel completely ready. It happens when you are willing. Willing to move. Willing to trust. Willing to respond without endless analysis. You are willing now. That willingness will open doors that hesitation once kept closed. And as you step forward, understand this clearly. Heaven is not watching cautiously anymore. It is partnering actively. Angels assigned to your path are moving with greater freedom because your alignment has stabilized. This is partnership at a deeper level. Soon, you will see tangible evidence that this was not just an emotional message. It was a spiritual pivot. Prepare your heart for the final unveiling. Because what is about to be declared next will seal this entire process and release a blessing over your responsiveness that extends beyond this moment. Beloved vessel, this is where it seals. What began as a warning about a lifted shield has now become a declaration over your life. The attack that was forming has dissolved. The vulnerability that almost widened has closed. The hesitation that once weakened rhythm has been replaced with discipline. But more than that, you have crossed an invisible line. You are no longer someone who delays and then regrets. You are becoming someone who senses and responds. That shift is not small. It changes how heaven entrusts you. It changes how opposition approaches you. It changes how your future unfolds. God says, because you returned quickly, I restore quickly. Because you align sincerely, I establish you firmly. The shield is not just back in place, it is fortified with wisdom. There is a difference between protection without awareness and protection with understanding. Before you were covered but casual. Now you are covered and conscious. That consciousness multiplies strength. Tonight will not carry the attack that was scheduled. Instead, it will carry rest. Instead of confusion, there will be clarity. Instead of subtle pressure, there will be quiet steadiness. That is not coincidence. That is restoration. But hear this carefully. The lesson was never about fear of attack. It was about awareness of authority. You were shown how powerful your obedience truly is. A single refusal adjusted your shield. A single correction reinforced it. That is influence. You are not spiritually fragile. You are spiritually significant. And significance demands consistency. From this point forward, let responsiveness define you. When conviction comes, move. When clarity speaks, act. When peace confirms, proceed. Let delay become unfamiliar. Let hesitation become rare. Because what is ahead of you is not survival. It is assignment. There is an assignment unfolding that requires your sharpened discernment. It requires your disciplined response time. It requires the version of you that learned from this moment. You may not see the full picture yet, but you will soon notice doors aligning differently. conversations flowing smoother, opportunities appearing at precise timing. That is not random blessing. That is the fruit of alignment. The enemy's plan was interruption. God's plan is acceleration, and acceleration has begun. You are stepping into a stretch of time where your decisions will feel guided rather than forced, where your path will feel clearer than it has in months, where your peace will feel anchored instead of fragile. Guard that peace fiercely. Do not return to casual delay. Do not entertain small compromises. Do not minimize inner nudges. You have seen how quickly things can shift. Now choose consistency. Seal this transformation with your declaration. Type "My shield is restored" in the comments if you receive this fully. Blessing code 5115 is now activated over your house, your mind, and your calling. And now, as this message closes, hear this as part of the same prophetic flow. When God restores a shield, He also raises watchmen. Messages like this are not accidents. They are oil poured out so others do not walk into battles unaware. The Lord declares, "I will rebuke the devourer for your sake," and He speaks it as a living promise over those who stand in alignment and help others do the same. I will be a guardian of the light God is spreading. If that rises in your spirit, act on it now. Sow into this mission through super thanks. Step into membership and stand as a pillar that keeps these warnings flowing. Release your seed through the PayPal link in the description and let it become a shield for someone else tonight. As you give, may heaven fortify your walls, enlarge your territory, and establish your obedience as generational blessing. Do not delay this prompting. Move with the same responsiveness you learned here. Activate your obedience now.